Hey, how's it going everyone? I hope you're all doing well as usual. So I'm back today with another video once again, but this time I'm doing something a little bit different. I know in the last video I mentioned that I was probably going to do another edition of hard rock heavy metal vinyl, but I decided to change it at the 11th hour to going back to my existing CD collection because I thought people would want to hear about some extreme material, like as in extreme genres of metal. So that's what I'm doing today, but in the next video I'll probably do hard rock heavy metal vinyl. So yes, my existing CD collection, you'll recall the last one of these videos of this nature, I just completed the artists beginning with L, so the last artist was Lull. So now I'm into the letter M with my CD collection. And today I'm going to talk about 6 albums and 3 bands. So just to let you know, with the first band I'm talking about, it's relatively a mainstream metal band, and there's nothing wrong with that, but just saying that I know that a lot of you like just extreme stuff, so that is included. So there's sort of like 1 mainstream metal band and then 2 death metal bands in this particular video. So hopefully there's something for everyone. 6 albums to talk about, so let's get into it. So artists beginning with M. So the first album and band needs no introduction. This is Machine Head with Burn My Eyes. So yes, yeah, classic 90s metal band. This was one of the bands that helped redefine the sound of heavy metal, I guess, in the 90s, along with Pantera. Because if you think about it, bands in the 80s were completely different, you know, like the big 4 of thrash metal and heavy metal in general. You know, it was very different to this. So like bands like Pantera and Machine Head introduced a new sound to metal music. And yes, I think Pantera and Machine Head were sort of influenced by thrash metal, definitely, but like I said, they helped to forge this completely fresh new sound in the 90s, and it was very good. Now, I know this band is somewhat controversial because a lot of people don't like their later material, or, you know, Rob Flynn, the vocalist, he's a very sort of outspoken person, and a lot of people dislike him because he's, to use an old term, like a social justice warrior, something like that. But to be honest, as I always say, I don't really care about any of that. I listen to a band because of the music. So this was a band actually introduced to me, you know, in the 90s by my younger brother. You know, I was listening to more extreme stuff at the time. He liked more mainstream material, but he introduced me to this band, and I was just amazed by how heavy they were and how they had this completely fresh sound. So I actually liked this era of the band, and I bought this one and the next album at a shop in Amsterdam. Actually, it was like only €5 each. I think I've still got the sticker. Yes, Concerto Records, €5. Yeah. So yes, definitely a good purchase. So yes, most people have probably heard this album, but like I said, what I like about Machine Head is the heaviness and the fresh sound. It's sort of like maybe thrash metal mixed with groove metal and then something else heavier. I really like Rob Flynn's voice. I think he has a totally unique voice, especially when he's doing those kind of I don't know, just really melodic moments in his vocals. It's just so different to anything from the 80s, so I really like it. Totally fresh sound. And this record is very heavy. Probably my favorite songs on the album are tracks 1, 2, and 3. Let's get straight to it. So Davidian, awesome heavy riff in that, awesome vocals from Rob. I also really like Old, the song, you know, that's the one on the chorus with Jesus Wept. Absolutely fantastic, great pre-chorus once again. And then track 3, 1,000 Lies. Just great breakdowns in that song, like the way the music flows and the vocals once again. So they're probably my favorite 3 tracks on the album, Davidian, Old, and 1,000 Lies. And I also really like, what is it, track 5, Death Church. Yep, that's got a good groove-driven riff breakdown and solo in that song. And I also really like Blood for Blood. I think that's 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry, also, sorry, the song I was talking about, track 5, is actually The Rage to Overcome. So that's the one where I was saying it's got a good groove-driven riff breakdown and solo. And I also really like track 7, A Nation on Fire, because that has atmospheric and haunting clean guitars and an equally atmospheric vocal melody in the intro before the heavy riffage kicks in. And yeah, the vocal melodies on that song are absolutely fantastic. And I also really like track 11, the final track, I think Block, because that has some heavy riffage. So yeah, they would be my favorite songs on the album. Davidian, Old, A Thousand Lies, The Rage to Overcome, A Nation on Fire, and Block. But overall, it's a very good album anyway, but they're just my favorite tracks. So just showing you the front cover here, which is pretty cool. And all of the lyrics here, and picture of the band there. But with this band, you don't really need the lyric sheet as such because Rob Flynn sings very clearly. But yeah, sort of like a nostalgia trip for me into the 90s, but a great album. That's Machine Head with Burn My Eyes. And I mentioned that I got their second album from Concerto Records Amsterdam as well, so that's what I'm going to talk about now. This is Machine Head with The More Things Change. I think this was actually the first Machine Head album I heard back in the day, because this one had just been released like in the late 90s. And yeah, absolutely fantastic album. It sort of picks up off where Burn My Eyes left off. So same sound, but I just think the songwriting is more mature and even better. It's still very heavy and it still has those moments of atmosphere and everything. So absolutely fantastic. Really heavy riffs in this. Like sometimes I take for granted how heavy this band is until I put the CD on and listen to it. But like the opening, once again, my favorite songs are the opening tracks. So 10 Ton Hammer, fucking heavy as balls, and great atmospheric clean vocals from Rob in the chorus. I also really like Take My Scars, again, fantastic vocal melodies, and just excellent atmosphere on that song. Some of my other favorite songs on this one are track 4, Down to None. It's just a very memorable song. And also I really like track 5, The Front Lines. And is it track? Yeah, tracks 8 and 9, Violate and Blistering. Like track 8 has just such a unique heavy riff at the beginning of that song, just really accentuating how heavy this band is. But once again, the whole album is really good. But I do find just the same on Burn My Eyes, there are moments where I sort of zone out and I'm not paying attention to the music. Not because I dislike it, it's just that some tracks stand out more than others. But yeah, this is a very good album. So just show you the front cover here. Yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail with these mainstream metal albums because most people know them anyway, probably. So you've got the lyric sheet here. Picture of the band once again. And there's the disc. So yeah, a lot of people would say these two Machine Head albums are the only ones you need. So I'm glad that I have them. But I'm not being a snob. Like I try not to do that and say, oh, a certain band, you know, turned shit or went bad. I just don't really know enough Machine Head material. But I do know this, the album The Burning Red, which came after this one, I did like certain songs on it, but I didn't like the direction it was going, sort of in a new metal, rap metal direction. And then I've heard that some of their subsequent later albums are really bad according to some people, but I'm in no position to judge because I haven't heard those albums. But for now, these two albums will do nicely. So I think it's right to say that these are essential Machine Head albums. So Burn My Eyes and The More Things Change. All right, so that's just a brief intro or warm up, if you will, because now we're getting into the stuff that people most likely want to hear about. So the next 4 albums are by 2 death metal bands. Okay, so up next we have Malevolent Creation with Essentials. So you can see here, this is a large, thick digipack. That's because it actually contains 3 albums by the band. So I'll just backtrack for a moment. So Malevolent Creation probably need no introduction. One of the sort of classic death metal bands formed in the 90s, originally from Buffalo, New York, just like Cannibal Corpse, but just with as the same with Cannibal Corpse, they later relocated to Florida, so they're sort of considered Floridian death metal, even though they're not originally from there. Yep, old school 90s death metal. And to be honest, I bought this in Thailand because I had always heard the band's name. This was years and years ago, like 12 years ago or something, but I'd never got around to listening to them, so I thought this would be a good introduction. 3 albums in one, and yep, actually a really good purchase. So this contains, I'm just referring to the albums here. So the albums Eternal, what's the other one? The Fine Art of Murder and In Cold Blood. So we'll talk about those one by one. But obviously this is an excellent introduction to Malevolent Creation because you have 3 albums which are regarded as their best. Interestingly though, it doesn't feature the album The Ten Commandments, their debut, which I've heard from people is their best. So I should get on to that, but I do like these albums in the meantime. So you see here, it's a digipack, got a picture of the band and all 3 albums, no booklet, no lyrics, nothing like that, just straight to the music. So we'll talk about these albums as they appear in order. So first of all, we have the album Eternal, which I haven't researched the years of these, but I think all of these came out in a row. But yeah, the album Eternal, which is a very good one. It's very sort of heavy, typical US death metal, typical Floridian death metal. So if you like that kind of style, you'll probably get into this. It has the very low vocals. Yeah, by the way, the vocalist on this album was also the bassist, I think, Jason or Jay Blachowicz. Sorry, these Polish names are hard to pronounce, but yeah, I really like his voice on this album. It's got this really deep, monstrous bellow, and it sort of reminds me of Glenn Benton of Deicide, especially on the opening track, No Salvation. Like this album, Eternal, it has a lot of slow, heavy breakdowns, so like really sort of catchy, heavy moments, but in addition to that, they also have the blast beats, so there's a good variety of tempos. So my favorite tracks on this album are the opening track, No Salvation, just like a great breakdown riff in the chorus, and I just like that the vocal pattern following the guitars, you know, human race shall fall. It's just such a monstrous song, and it's got a really good guitar solo as well. And the other favorite track for me actually is track 9, I think, To Kill. That's got a kind of hardcore edge with the speed and the riffage. So you know how like Slayer had a kind of hardcore sound with some of their songs when they played really fast? I get that vibe on the song To Kill. So my only criticism of this album, Eternal, is that, well, I shouldn't say criticism because I don't want to sound like some pompous armchair critic, but compared to some of the other albums on here, this one, Eternal, it doesn't grab my attention all the time. Like I zone out a bit on this one. That's not to say it's bad. Like it's kind of meat and potatoes death metal, but there's not as many standout tracks on this one. But yeah, my favorite tracks from Eternal are No Salvation and To Kill. Then we get to the second album on disc 2, which is The Fine Art of Murder. This one is my favorite of the 3 I'm talking about today. So significantly, this album featured a change in vocalist to include the vocalist Brett Hoffman, rest in peace. He passed away a few years ago, actually, at only the age of 58 or something. And what was interesting about his voice was that, unlike Jay Blachowicz, who had a very sort of deep guttural bellow like Glenn Benton, Brett Hoffman has more of a raspy kind of voice on this album anyway, on The Fine Art of Murder. But I really like this second disc, The Fine Art of Murder, because it has the most memorable songs. It has a high number of standout tracks, which is really good. So what will I say? In addition to Brett Hoffman's raspy vocals, the production on this one, The Fine Art of Murder, it's a little bit thin, but that sort of just adds to the charm of the album. But it's chock full of excellent riffs, vocals, and memorable songs, which is really important. So my favorite tracks on this one, so the opening 2, To Die at Hand and Manic Demise, are absolutely fantastic. And undoubtedly my favorite track on The Fine Art of Murder is track 5, Mass Graves, just because it has this chunky, pile-driving, pulverizing, heavy breakdown riff in the chorus. And it's one of those songs that makes you just want to nod your head like that when you hear the riff, because it's so good. Absolutely heavy, thunderous, monstrous stuff, and it's really catchy as well. So Mass Graves is undoubtedly my favorite track on the album. I also really like the title track, The Fine Art of Murder. Again, catchy riffs and vocals in that. And what else? Oh yeah, Bone Exposed, another classic. That's a lot faster, so there's a lot of blast beats. Yeah, that's something I will say about this album, The Fine Art of Murder. While it has the slow breakdown riffs, it also has like a lot, much faster tempos than Eternal. So like it's got a lot of blast beats, a lot of up-tempo songs, which is really good, but they also have those slow, doom-laden breakdowns as well. So yeah, Bone Exposed, great track. And my other favorite one, is it called Rictus Surreal? Yeah, I was just noting these down yesterday. So yeah, that's one thing I will say. Each of these albums has about 12 or 13 songs, and One criticism is I sometimes find these albums to be a bit too long, or maybe have too many songs, for my liking anyway, but maybe I'm just being a picky bitch. But like, all I'm saying is I sometimes feel when an album's too long, it loses its impact. You know, I can't stand it when bands do these 1 hour or 70-minute albums like Watain. This band doesn't do albums as long as that, but I sometimes find there's too many songs, or maybe I'm just not into it as much as other bands. But yeah, The Fine Art of Murder is an absolutely fantastic album. Like 6 or 7 of the songs are my favorites. And then we get onto disc 3, album 3, which is entitled In Cold Blood. This is the one of the 3 that I'm the least familiar with, but for that reason, it's also very fresh for me. So how can I describe In Cold Blood? That actually also features Jay Blachowicz again on vocals. So the chronology of these albums is mixed a bit, but yeah, so you've got back to that guttural bellow in the vein of Glenn Benton, in my opinion. But In Cold Blood has really nasty, heavy production. See, much heavier production than The Fine Art of Murder, which was kind of thin. So this has meaty, heavy production and an awesome drum sound. So I think actually of the 3 albums I'm talking about today, In Cold Blood has the best production. And yeah, I was listening to this once again yesterday. Some of my favorite tracks on this are Prophecy, which features good riffs and vocal patterns. Also track 3 entitled Compulsive, which has great heavy riffage and also some interesting off-time rhythms. So that's cool. And yes, the title track, In Cold Blood, track 7, that is absolutely heavy as balls and features some very chunky riffs, and the vocal patterns follow the groovy riff, so it makes it a very catchy song. I also really like track 8 entitled, is it entitled 9? I think. It's in Roman numerals anyway, but that has a good opening riff, which is very chunky and frantic. And also track 10, which is entitled Millions. But yeah, I'm the least familiar with In Cold Blood, but it is a very good album. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Like, I'm not going to go into too much detail with this because there's 3 albums that I've just spoken about, and we're not going too badly for time. But yeah, I think Malevolent Creation is one of the most well-established death metal bands in the US scene anyway. And yeah, people should know them. But if you haven't, this is a great start because it's 3 so-called, like when I say so-called classic albums, I know other people regard other ones as better, but it's a great start. I've always liked the logo of this band, it's really cool. And yeah, just showing you once again. So there's the picture of the band. The band's had various lineup changes over the years, and the 3 albums all in different colors. Yeah, so like I said, Malevolent Creation are not one of my favorite death metal bands. It's maybe like, but that's not to, you know, disrespect them or anything. Like, it's kind of meat and potatoes, US death metal, Floridian death metal, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're very good at what they do, and they get the job done musically. And I have to say, I much prefer this to modern gurgly vocal death metal or slam death metal. This is way better. Just solid, old school death metal. So that's Malevolent Creation with Essentials. Okay. Oh good, this video is going along a lot less shorter than I had hoped, but we still have 1 album to talk about and a new band. So up next, we're going to talk about a band which I did mention in a thread, but I never went into too much detail. This is Malignancy with Motivated by Hunger. So if you're not familiar, Malignancy are a death metal band from the East Coast of the US anyway. I'm not sure if it's New York or maybe New Jersey, but yes, and they're most famous for featuring Mortician's Roger Beaujard on drums. So Roger is Mortician's guitarist and drum programmer, and he actually played physical drums with this band, but he's no longer in the band. Just have a look at that cover, Motivated by Hunger. There's the shark there. So I included this in Ron Haggerty's aqua-themed metal albums, but that's so cool. I like the title as well, and I like the bluish hue on this. I previously posted this in my aquatic theme video, like my thread response, but not Facebook, YouTube took the thumbnail down because they found this image too offensive. So there you go. But yeah, so if you're not familiar with Malignancy, how I would describe this album anyway, because this is the only one I owned, this, to me, it's very brutal death metal, bordering on technical death metal, but to me, it has a very strong grindcore influence. Maybe not so much in terms of the songwriting, but the guitar sound and tone sounds strongly similar to bands like Agoraphobic Nosebleed and Hemdale, which are two very famous US grind bands on Relapse, I think. You know, that really just fucking harsh, abrasive, thick and heavy guitar tone. That's what you have on this. So like, I think fans of, you know, Hemdale and Agoraphobic Nosebleed would probably like this band as well, even though this band is more of a death metal band. So on this particular EP, this is a 6-track EP, the music ranges from blasting and fast with a nice blast beat snare sound, but obviously it's not a pang sound, it's got a crisp sound, so it's not going in that slammy direction. And so it's got those fast blasting riffs, but then it also ranges from that to slow groovy and heavy riffs. And in that sense, some riffs are kind of similar to Mortician, but at the same time, not exactly the same. And there are a lot of time changes and tempo variety in each song. So the songs are never boring and always full of energy, yet also very groovy and catchy at moments. So yeah, and some of the blast beat sections though, of which there are plenty, are insanely fast. So the songs are very varied. And in terms of the vocals, kind of typical death metal vocals, they're very low, guttural and brutal. But the good thing is they're not excessively gurgly like modern death metal or slam death metal. Sorry, I can't reiterate enough how I'm not so much into that style. Yeah, these vocals are more sort of just low, guttural and brutal. A bit like the Lividity vocals, like, you know, Lividity, the brutal death grind band from the US, a bit like the vocals in Lividity's Fetish for the Sick, I would say. Yeah, but really enjoyable EP. I like the song titles on this. They really capture the imagination. So you have Motivated by Hunger, Vaginal Incisors, Separated Anxiety, Atmosphere of Decay, Cystic Fibrosis, and a live track which I'll talk about later. So yeah, the lyrics are really intricate, as you can see here, very detailed. But it's funny, with this kind of music though, because it's so fast and brutal, the vocalist doesn't really have an opportunity to properly enunciate the words because they have to keep up with the music. So a bit similar in that sense to Carcass or Napalm Death, but not musically. But yeah, the lyrics are really intricate, like cystic fibrosis, interesting concept for a death metal album, making it kind of realistic. But yeah, my favorite track on this, if I'd have to name one, would be track 4, which is Atmosphere of Decay. That has some an excellent groovy riff to start the song, and a good slow heavy breakdown towards the end of the song. But yeah, there's a lot of tempo variety in all of the songs on this. So yep, really good stuff. Just showing you the cover once again. There's the back. Oh, by the way, it also features a live track entitled Intrauterine Cannibalism, and this is another one of my favorite tracks on the album, actually, simply because of the banter between the vocalist and the audience. So the vocalist of this band is Danny Nelson, I think, and he speaks with a very East Coast accent, and it's really funny, just his banter with the audience. He seems like a comedian. Like at the beginning, he says at the end of one song, "Thank you very much. Just to remind you, up the back we have CDs and t-shirts. Well, don't all go running at once," because obviously people didn't go, but like, yeah, he's got a lot of charm as a frontman. And then it's so funny because he's speaking so casually and articulately, but then launches into this brutal death metal vocals on Intrauterine Cannibalism. So yeah, it's worth it for the comic value of that. Oh shit, and I can't show you the disc because I've left it in the CD player, but trust me, it's blue like the cover. Yeah, so really good stuff. If you just like brutal old school death metal, which is slightly technical, you'll really enjoy this. And I would say, excuse me for a moment, just consulting my notes, I would recommend this to fans of grindcore, even though it's not grind, simply because of the guitar tone. So if you like bands like Brutal Truth, Hemdale, Exit 13, Agoraphobic Nosebleed, you might like this. And also Mortician, obviously, and Lividity, especially in terms of the vocals. So there you have it, Malignancy with Motivated by Hunger. All right, that's it guys for today. So that's pretty good for my standards, I think. So 6 albums and under 25 minutes. So yeah, I was quicker than expected. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I think that's a good thing that I haven't gone on for too long, but let me know what you think. Did you enjoy the video? What do you think of these bands and albums? Let me know. Any recommendations, any discussion, let's get it going. So in the next video, I think I'm probably going to go back to hard rock, heavy metal, vinyl, but as always, there's plenty of ideas in the pipeline, so I'm not running out of those. So I will be back again soon with several more videos. So in the meantime, thanks for your support of the channel, and I'll talk to you all soon. Cheers, bye.